If you'd like to join the ranks of Patreons and sponsor the show, head over to patreon.com/Cellar Door Skeptics. For less than a 20-ounce soda or an energy drink each week, you can help sponsor us, the hosts, and our charity of choice. Patreon helps Cellar Door Skeptics create better content, become better activists, and it's going to help you stay healthier by drinking one less soda or one less energy drink each week. Click the link in the notes of the show to sponsor us today, because we bring the discussion with the sources.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Walk with me through the cellar door.
The storm is coming, Francis.
A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Welcome to Cellar Door Skeptics. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We have a new series, and yes, we have a new series. I don't know, it's this concept, right? You know, and we talk about how much we love the show and how we want to evolve the show and what we want to do to change things, right? And Hannah and I have been talking about local politics for, almost 4 years now together, collectively. And we've been trying to do things to try and change things. Because if you look at 45, the orange Cheeto monster, right? When you look at him, you just regret everything about life. Like, I cringe every time I hear his name, every time I see his face. I just think, this is like, I don't know. This is literally like a delusion here. This is like an alternate universe, man.
I feel like we're living through the part of history that people in later years will be like, what were they thinking? Like, every once in a while, you hear about something where someone's like, you remember that time when that one politician said, you know what we should do? We should try to keep slavery. And everybody's like, no, that's a horrible idea. You're wrong, and we should not do that. And like the Middle Ages, when they were like, you know what we should do? We should stop the Industrial Revolution or any kind of influence and increase in technology, and we should completely and totally rely on superstition. Like, yeah, you did that, and we all now think that is hilarious that you were so I guess simple that you would just let something like the advancement of society go. And I really think that our society right now is just holding back and stopping any evolution and letting the rest of the world move on. Europe kind of sort of also is doing the same thing. They're letting Asia Pacific region just go through the ceiling.
Exactly. And as we talk about how do we change society and how do we change, what you can hear, what you can see, what you can do, we decided to create a series at least till the end of the election cycle here in November, with local politicians having a conversation about how do we change the local state. And you're going to hear me repeat this in the next hour, right? But the conversation that I wanted to have is that, hey, look, here's the deal. When we sit down and talk, when we sit down and examine things, when we sit and look at how life is going to go, we have to at least acknowledge that society is moving away from where we're at. And the only way to continue to be relevant, to change the thinking, the mindsets that we're at, is to challenge ourselves with new ideas. And the GOP has decided that they're going to say, hey, you know what? It's not about federal rights. It's about state rights. And I'm saying, you know what? Fine. I'm going to get on board with that. I don't know what else to do. I'm going to get on board with state rights. I'm going to get on board with changing society through the local government. And I'm going to say, hey, instead of having a whole podcast or a whole, month dedicated to looking at federal discussions, we're going to look at local discussions, right? So we're going to have a series where we have individuals on who are running for local positions, and you're going to go, hey, I don't know who that person is, and oh, you know what, that's not that big of a deal. But I'm going to say, yes, it is. Because if we don't start now, if we don't start looking at the local elections, and if we don't start looking at how we can change where we're at this specific time frame, we're going to end up with another Trump. But the difference is that when it's at a local level, what happens is people are going to go, well, it's at a local level, it can't do that much harm. But when you have a bunch of Trumpites all vying for a local level, all you turn into is another society that has Trumpites at this local level, plus a actual federal figure that's doing the exact same thing. So I'm saying, let's change the local elections, let's fix where we're at, and let's strive for changing at a local level so that we can have a blue wave or even a green wave if we can muster it, to the point where we don't have to deal with the GOP interfering with our localized lives. And I say this very, very cautiously because, you know, a lot of people are like, well, hold on, Chris, you know, what are you going to do? Where are we going to be at? Do you understand that they're going to change what we pay taxes on? And you're right, we are. But look where we're at right now. I mean, for Christ's sake, Flint doesn't even have clean water.
Yeah.
You know,
well, either do a lot of other places. I mean, we're looking at what's happening with West Michigan and the Wolverine plant, and we have tons of problem with PFAS that are the same kind of situations where we learned about lead being incredibly dangerous to society and reducing, you know, unleaded gasolines and all of those kinds of things that were significantly affecting our environment. We're learning about these new chemicals. They're not new chemicals, but we're newly learning about the dangers of the chemicals, the PFAS contaminations, and all that kind of stuff throughout the society. Like, all of these things are updated, and we need to change what we're doing. We need to modify our behavior to cover protections and health for all of our society. And what the GOP is basically doing is they are locking down their feet and digging their heels into this was great in the past, and this was awesome in the past, and the technology and the new things, I don't quite trust it, so we're just going to ignore that and just pretend like we can go back to 1954 when the United States was responsible for roughly 80% of the world's production. There's something about digging your head into the sand and pretending like they're in a different era. Like, these types of things we really need to do, we really need to pay attention to. And with these new local politicians, hopefully we can start something from the ground up. So obviously we know that from the top down it's possible to create change, because there was a not so much global. I mean, I will mention the Nobel Peace Prize for President Obama, even though Chris and I probably have a little bit of trepidation towards mentioning that. But I mean, when we talk about national politics at the U.S. level, we're going to see then the changes, then that trickle down that we always talk about being a falsification for economics. Well, the same thing happens at the political level. There isn't a trickle down from the national down. It really is a grassroots growth. It has to come from the bottom up. And all these local politicians that we're going to be talking to, these are the people, you know, teachers, these are local businessmen. These are going to be the people that are actually going to make change at the local level. And hopefully they can coalesce and create something. They can make something from the ground up and create like a real movement where we can start talking about things like a new deal, where we can create a new higher minimum wage. We can create a new universal health care program, a variety of updates to the system that we have now that are needed and necessary for what we've created as far as the economic system in the United States. And hopefully the people we're going to talk to are going to be able to help push for that. And if they don't, we can have a debate with them. I mean, we would love to hear from some people who are from the conservative angle, but every time we email them out, they don't really respond a whole lot. I mean, I don't know. We don't hear contrarian responses to our perspective very often. So I don't know, maybe we can catch a couple people. If anybody's interested, send us some emails for anybody you think would be willing to debate. I know we always have Aaron, our go-to guy who likes, he doesn't quite post against us anymore, but the debates and stuff that we've had in the past. But I mean, we love the variety of perspective, and especially Heidi, who's going to be talking with us tonight. She has a more centrist perspective than Chris and I do, but we respect it and we think it's really useful what she's doing. So I don't know. I'm excited for the small politicians segment that we're going to be doing regularly now.
Exactly. Without further ado, please welcome to the show Heidi Zuniga, candidate for the 88th District of the House of Representatives. Thank you for joining us on Cellar Door Skeptics tonight. Our goal over the last, or for the next month and a half, is to cover local politics. You know, and we've talked about this on the show before, and we've had local representatives on. You know, 2 years ago, Hannah, I think we had Christopher Reed on. We had Dennis, and I can't remember Dennis's last name.
Dennis Murphy and Christopher Reeder. They both
There
ran
you
in 2016.
Yes, and so we had some people on. We really liked that idea, and so the goal is how can we morph the show a little bit? You know, we talk a lot about politics on the show, and we complain quite a bit about an orange Cheeto guy. I don't even know if you can categorize him as that, because I kind of feel offended that he's part of my gender. But
it happens.
We talk a lot about, you know, national politics, and we've committed this year, how can we get the vote out? How can we get people to go out and vote? Well, we decided for this last month is what we want to do is talk to as many local politicians running for government as we can. And the nice thing is especially when you get down to the state level, you're meeting with people that have jobs just like you. They're running for office, but they also have a full-time job. They had full-time jobs in the past, and now they've stopped to do this. You know, we're meeting with people that are humans more so than some of these senators we see up there. And I'm sorry to say that, but, you know, when you look at Mitch McConnell and you see a turtle, you know, when I've been talking to some of these local politics, I don't get that feel. I get the feel that people are just as human as us. Some of them just disagree, and some of them disagree quite a bit with us. But, you know, obviously, as a very progressive show, our goal is not to, you know, give a platform to GOP candidates. So you probably won't hear a GOP candidate on the show unless it's through a debate. And we're open to a debate. So anybody that's listening by chance that has a GOP candidate running that wants to talk with any of the candidates that have been on our show, we'll be happy to set up a debate or discussion with them. But tonight, the candidate that we are going to focus on to begin with is running for state representative in the 88th district. Please welcome to the show, Heidi, and I'm going to butcher your last name, Zuniga.
Zuniga.
No,
Yeah,
I didn't butcher it.
You did great, Zuniga.
There we go.
Yep.
See? I can't believe I did. And maybe it's because we talked beforehand. And I'll tell you, I have that bad habit. And you can, if you listen to the show at all in any way, shape, or form, you'll notice I butcher all sorts of words. I'm the butcher guy, I guess, when it comes to words.
So welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and you know, there's a little bit of a backstory here too. So we've been interested in local politics. You know, one of the things that has happened in my life is I have a relative that's happens to be running for state representative as well. So about a month and a half ago, I looked up who the competition was for him, and of course I don't support him because he's extremely far right. And that's how I met Heidi. And I ended up reaching out to her and I said, hey, would you like to come on the show? I'd like to give you a platform. I really, you know, endorse a lot of what your website talks about. And she's like, well, I got to meet you first. And I was like, all right, that's fine. And she did. She drove all the way into Zealand to meet with me. And we had a great couple-hour conversation. She said, yep, let's take this to the next level. And she's actually been very instrumental in getting us connected with some other local politicians that are on the November ballot as well in the Ottawa County District.
Yeah, Chris, it's funny because when I first met you, or when you first reached out on Facebook, I thought, you know what, I need to make sure this guy's not a creeper, so I need to, you know, look him in the eye and talk to him. And, you know, when I saw Cellar Door Skeptics, and I thought, is this something I want to be involved in? And then we met and, you know, found out that we're really kind of on the same page on a lot of the ideas. And we kind of both have the same goal, so I thought it would be great. And then when I was able to make some other connections, like you said, with with some of the others that are running for state representative in the local districts, then running for Congress and Senate, things like that, you know, I thought what a great platform for all of us to have, since a lot of the local media, like I haven't even been contacted by the Holland Sentinel, and they have mentioned my opponent by name with a link to find out more about his campaign. and they never even contacted me to ask me any questions. So I really appreciate the opportunity to have to get on a podcast like this and to to see if I can get the word out.
It makes you wonder about the old days where they talk about the fairness doctrine, and even nowadays when it's still part of the law that we have to give equal time. We don't quite see that in the smaller things because it's hard to really to police that. And I mean, I would love to see local media actually give fair time. In Grand Rapids, down Kentwood area where I am, we do see both sides because Kentwood's a pretty diverse area. But you and Chris are both a little bit often towards the lake shore, and it gets a bit strange out there. That's probably the best way I can describe it.
It's a whole other world over here, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Well, and that's the funny thing is, when it's very, I guess for me, it's very exciting to see somebody running for office that I can actually meet in person that's not a GOP candidate. I mean, we've had them before, right? I mean, they do run. For example, Chris Banks, we interviewed him as well, and he's running in the same district that I actually live in. And it's just funny to see the amount of attention that Danielle Garcia gets compared to him.
Yeah.
And it's just this area, like it's that super conservative Calvinistic, upbringing that says, hold on, if you're not GOP, we just can't vote for you. Like sometimes I don't even know how the Democratic office even stays in business. I hope there's quite a few donations because it just seems like in this area it dries up so fast compared to other areas.
In this area, they actually have had years where there was no Democrat running, so people didn't even have the option of voting for someone on the other than someone that was from the Republican Party. And I think you're right that the money in this area dries up because people are focusing money in areas that they think they could actually win. And this area is it's an uphill battle for me. It's an uphill battle for Chris, for Jerry, who's running in the Grand Haven area. That's at the 89th district. For Rob Davidson, who's running the 2nd Congressional District, and for Jeanette Skipper, who's running for Senate. It is an uphill battle for all of us just because of how conservative the area is. And I think historically it's looked at as not likely enough for people to put their money towards, so they put their money towards areas that they think they can win. So we're all struggling in this area.
Yeah, and I think one of the important things here is, and I'm going to just make an assumption that you don't support the Kavanaugh nomination. Whether you agree with his personal beliefs or not, I'm pretty sure everybody in this room can agree that he should have been disqualified just based on his past life. But the big thing here is we sit here and we now got to regroup, right? We got to look, okay, yes, those people that didn't turn out and vote, those people that wanted their protest vote, and I'm sorry. Like I'm going to be a little aggressive here and say you're despising of Hillary and the blue vote folks. I mean, look what happens. We have Trump now. They're able to start putting some extremely conservatives in office, and one that's a sexual abuser. And now he's going to sit on the court unless somebody can repeal him, or unless for some reason he gets to actually get an FBI investigation that's better than what they originally had. And so how do we change that? Everybody has a difference of opinion. One of them, is protesting. I think protesting's great. Another one is how do we put people in power on the local level that can help change things locally? If the GOP is going to push this state first, mentality, right? Then we need to fix the states. Let's fix the states. Let's fix the counties, because once we do that, then we could turn around and say, okay, hey, we did what you wanted. And then they're going to change the tactics on us, and then we just got to shift again. And eventually we'll be able to have this huge blue wave, hopefully in the next, 4 years is what I'm hoping, but we'll see. So, but that brings me back to why we had Heidi on. When I met with Heidi, the passion that came from her and the desire to help change just our local, cities radiated from her. So Heidi, tell us a little bit about how you got involved and why you want to run to make a difference.
All right, well, the story goes back a couple years before I'd had any kind of intention of running for politics. I was a teacher, and I was a teacher for 11 years, and I decided that I couldn't play the game that was going on in school. I was a special ed teacher, and I was being evaluated by someone who had never taught in a special ed classroom. And so I was very frustrated because somebody who did not have the background, did not have the experience, was telling me that what I was doing was not good enough for my students, and telling me that it was more important for me to teach the 8th grade curriculum than it was to teach them how to put deodorant on, because they didn't know how to turn the little knob at the bottom of the deodorant to get it out of the container. And so I decided I was going to quit that position, and I was going to take a year or so and do some substitutes teaching in some different districts to see if there was a different district that I would prefer to teach in. Well, when I quit my job, I decided, I'm going to lose my insurance, so I've got to go and get a physical, things like that. So when I went in to get a physical, I needed to get a mammogram. So this is what happens when women of a certain age, you go physicals, you have to do the mammogram. Mine came back that they found something, and it turned out that it was cancer. So after being diagnosed with cancer and then going through my cancer treatment, and then everything that comes after going through a cancer treatment, it's a survivorship. You realize that cancer is much more than just that initial diagnosis and the treatment. So, I spent a year after that trying to figure out what did this do for my life, and now what am I going to do? Am I going to go back into teaching? And I just didn't feel that was what. I'm not an overly religious person, but I kind of thought, did God give me this challenge in my life to do something with it? And I was just kind of sitting there waiting to figure out what I wanted to do. So a friend of mine came up and said, "Have you ever thought about getting into politics?" I said, "I have honestly never ever in my life thought about getting into politics." And so she said, "Okay, think about it." So I thought about it. I talked to the head of the Ottawa County Democrats, and I told her, I am very moderate. I am not super far left. I'm certainly not super far right. I knew that. But I'm very moderate. And I said, what you need to understand, if I decide to run, I will not compromise my principles for the sake of the party. And I said, that's what you need to understand, the first thing. And she said, that's perfect. Nobody in your district would ever vote for a completely far left liberal. And so that's kind of how it started. It kind of happened on accident. The timing was right. I'd been through the breast cancer thing, and I needed to figure out what to do. And just decided, healthcare is so important. And I've been through the healthcare system. I've been a teacher, so I've been through the education system as a teacher, as a student, and as a parent. And I thought, wow, those are two really big issues, and we really need somebody that can represent people who has actually been there, who has actually done it and gone through this, gone through the education system, gone through the healthcare system, and actually has an idea of what they're talking about.
You don't have to give up too much information, but basically your experience through the healthcare system, going through the cancer thing, because you were just part-time teaching at that point. How was your healthcare experience? Were you covered, or was this something that you really had to make a financial investment towards?
No, I've actually been pretty open about my whole healthcare situation. When I quit my job, I did it in the month of August so that I could keep my insurance right through the whole summer. So I was losing my insurance at the end of August. Well, we hadn't paid the premium for the marketplace insurance to be able to start September 1st, so I was going to go a month without insurance. So I was going to kick in on October 1st. Well, you thought, how many times can you go a month without needing insurance? You go months at a time without needing it. Well, so I got my mammogram on August 30th or something like that, just before my insurance, because I had the really great Teacher Mesa insurance. And so I got my mammogram thinking everything's going to be fine, no worries. The week after my insurance ran out is when they called me and said, we found something. Don't panic, right? How do you not panic when they tell you they found something on a scan like that? So then we scheduled another mammogram. And we said, we're going to pay for this out of our pocket. We know we don't have insurance, but this is not something we want to wait, at least for peace of mind. So I went into the mammogram, and they actually thought at first that maybe it was a cyst. And through the mammogram, they found out it wasn't. So then they sent me to another room for an ultrasound. So here I am thinking, we had some money saved up because we knew I was quitting my job, but we weren't planning on spending it on healthcare costs.
Yeah.
So after they did the ultrasound, they said, okay, you're going to need a biopsy. So we're like, oh my gosh, it just keeps adding up. And so a couple days later, when I was talking to somebody from Lemon Holton Cancer Pavilion in Grand Rapids, I talked to them and I said, I don't know if we can afford to get a biopsy. I don't know if we can afford to pay that out of pocket. What kind of financing do you do? And we already looked up. I know we don't qualify for Medicaid. The other insurance won't kick in until October 1st. I can try and see if I can get the COBRA insurance through my school because I said no prior to that. So I didn't know if I could still get it even though I said no the first time. And so as we're sitting there talking, she asked me a few questions. She said, you know what, there's a special program through the breast cancer and cervical cancer program through Medicaid, and you qualify for that. It has a higher earning threshold. And so because my husband had started a business with a couple other guys, and I think it was his first, he had been in business a little over a year, so there's not a whole lot of money right away at the beginning, of owning a business.
Yeah.
So we're under that. Yeah, so we were still under that earning threshold, so I qualified for Medicaid. So I actually was able to get the treatment rather than waiting 3 weeks in order to do the biopsy, which in my case, I was very fortunate. In the end, I could have waited the 3 weeks. My cancer was not very aggressive, and it had not progressed very far. So my treatment was a lumpectomy, and I had one lymph node removed, and I didn't have cancer in the lymph node, so I didn't have to go through chemotherapy. I did radiation, and sorry, I lose my train of thought. The medicine that I was on after cancer messes with your head. It's a chemo drug, so it kind of does some kinds of things. So, so having going through the cancer and things like that, some people a 3-week delay in treatment is the difference between life and death, truly. Just because their cancer is so aggressive. For me, I could have waited, but at that point, we didn't know that I could wait.
Well, that's good to hear that the socialized medicine at least was available and came through in the end. That's what I was just concerned about, and so it sounds like you were covered and you had a nice umbrella, and that's really good to hear.
Yeah, and and I was so thankful for it. And it's one of those things where you hear so many people putting down and criticizing people who use the Medicaid system. And when I've pulled out my Medicaid card, I've been embarrassed, to put I have Medicaid, and and I think what, I've worked since I was 11 years old. I've never had to utilize the system, but I'm so thankful that it was there when I needed it, and the plan was never to be on it for very long. It certainly wasn't a permanent kind of a plan, and it was there. And the thing is, for me, it was early intervention. I am all about early intervention in every situation in healthcare because I had early intervention. My treatment was quicker. It was cheaper. So if, someone waits and waits and waits and waits and waits, then all of a sudden the treatment is a lot more expensive. It's a lot more invasive. And then chances are you're going to die anyway. And so for me, now I'm still going to be a contributing member of society. My treatment was I don't want to say quick and easy, but comparative to what some other people go through. Oh, I was diagnosed 2016, and I had my lump 2016. My radiation went from December 13 to January 12 of 2016, 2017. So my treatment, or my diagnosis to treatment, was less than about 3 months.
Yeah. And
then after that is to follow up with the doctors.
And that's amazing. And I like, your take on everything. Early intervention, right? It's very logical. It can hit both of the conservative and the very far left parties, because if you think about it, what is early intervention did for you? It saved you money. Yes, you had to use Medicaid, but that's what it's there for. Now you're off Medicaid. You don't have to use it, right? That's the idea of what Medicaid is there for. And if you think about it, you were able to catch it early, save your life, save the healthcare costs, save a lot of us taxpayers a bunch of money. That's the whole point of early intervention. And earlier it was kind of funny. You said, hey, I'm a moderate. But the question I would ask you, are you for universal healthcare or single-payer healthcare in some way, shape, or form if it would help create a better system for early intervention?
Yes, I absolutely am. And that's where, at first I didn't know if I was or not. I had to think through, because I haven't seen enough of the numbers to see exactly how it would work. And I would like, instead of jumping in saying, yes, I'm absolutely for this, I'd like to know that it could work. I've heard some things, some people saying, yes, it absolutely could work. And some people say, no, it's never going to work. And, so I'd like to see some real numbers. I think, at least some sort of form of a single payer system would absolutely work for, for well child checks and for screening for different types of cancers, things that are the common kinds of, like the colonoscopies and the mammograms and things like that, to be included in a single payer system, just so that we can catch some of these things early, rather than catching them when they're too late, so that they can't be fixed, or they can't be fixed easily.
Is that something that you guys would have basically power over when you're in the? So this is the state legislator that you're running for, and so we hear about the states resisting against the national, and so is that something that basically you would be able to put forth when if you were in the position? Do you think in the legislature, or do you think it's just Michigan? It's just never going to be able to do like what California has done with instigating legislature to go against the grain if the national legislature never comes through.
Well, I mean, as a state representative, I don't know if there's a whole lot any single one could do, because I don't think that that's, at their, at the scope of what they can do. But certainly as a congressman, like Rob Davidson is running, starting at levels like that, and if there were people that were willing to work together to have a conversation, I'm not sure if it has to start with, state senators, or if it has to go with the governor. I'm not sure where it has to start, but I think it has to start from the top down. Then it needs to have support from people, like someone who had been in a representative position.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing, though, because when we talk through what's going on right now, right, and we talk through putting local people in power, and we talk with you, and the important thing for me here is you come on the show and you say, hey, I'm a moderate, I'm a centrist, I'm not as far left as me. We'll pick on
Us?
me. Yeah, I'm pretty far left. I mean, we had that conversation when we met. But I think the funny thing is a lot of people don't like to identify that, right? And we talked at the beginning, people don't want to vote for that, and I can respect that, right? I can respect a moderate position in terms of even local government on universal health care like that. The difference is you turn around and you're saying, hey, I'm going to investigate this. My answer is not sold. I am going to continue to research this and look at it. And hey, you know what? When a cost model comes out, or when we have the conversation and actually becomes a little bit more of a reality, I'm on board with at least having the conversation. And I think that's the difference here between looking at a GOP candidate like Luke Meerman, for Christ's sake, and somebody like Heidi Zuniga. And I don't know if I pronounced that right or not, but
yes, you did.
There we go. See, hey, I'm 2 for 2 tonight. It's funny because if Hannah were sitting right next to me, he'd be throwing something at me like, you're not saying it right. And in some of our earlier shows, I mispronounced scientific terms like you wouldn't believe. Like, words are not my, I know I have a podcast, but, pronouncing big words they're not my forte. It's just not. I'll get 1 out of 100. Anyway, the idea, though, is we go back to talking about, early intervention. And for me, that's one of the most important things a candidate can have. And I'm very excited that that's the platform you're running on. You're not running on how can I change America? How can I go back to, how America was great again? How can I make America have more independent rights but force my religious beliefs down your throat like Luke Meerman does? You're saying, hey, let's have early intervention. Let's have a conversation about how we can prevent some of the bigger crises. Is it a crisis that we need everybody to be able to pick what church can donate to the political campaign? Absolutely not. Is it a political crisis that we don't have great health care? Absolutely. Is it a political crisis that, and this even comes out of our own party from the 90s, our own party cut funding to, schools way back in the day. They thought they instituted a lottery, we had the taxation come, and then they cut some of the funding that our schools were getting based on the lottery supplement. But you're sitting here saying, hey, how do we help kids get smarter? How do we help give kids the environment that will help them produce more stable emotional things and contribute to society going forward?
And concentrating on the small scale too. Like that's the other thing. It's like that's one of the things that you have the ability and the power over in that small scale is bringing the small schools in and hopefully gathering up with other people to do a groundswell. So that the grassroots ideals. That's kind of what we're talking a lot of, national like things here with, big thought stuff, but like applying that to the small scale, which is what you would have the ability to make changes in.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and you talk about, I mentioned early intervention, and I know you've mentioned it again. As I'm talking about all different issues, every single issue that, that comes up, I can see as early intervention being able to at least address it, if not fix it, as to address it. We're talking about schools, early intervention. I'm really a huge advocate for early childhood education, getting kids in school by the age of 2.5. That's when kids in special ed can start. That's when all kids in gen ed should start. By the time their kids are age 6, they've lost a lot of the opportunities that they've had for learning. Before the age of 6, that's the best time for kids to learn symbols and numbers and spatial recognition and emotional control and things like that. So we're not having kids enter school until kindergarten. And, that's when they're 5, 6, 7 years old. So we've missed that opportunity to really teach them. We could be teaching them foreign languages. We could teach them social skills. We could teach them reading by the time they're 6 years old. And that's when we'd have an easier opportunity to be able to do this. But preschool is you either have to pay for it, or you have to be, some of the people that qualify for like a Great Start Readiness program. And those are limited numbers, and Head Start, things like that. And then there's all the other people in the middle that aren't qualifying, and they can't pay, so their kids aren't getting any kind of preschool. So you're hoping that the parents are working with them. Well, chances are both parents are working, because we are not a single income country anymore. You have to have a dual income in order to be able to afford your house and your car and any other expenses that you have. So the kids are falling behind. Well, then now we have this wonderful 3rd grade reading bill that if you can't read by the age of 3rd grade, then they're going to hold you back. Well, we already failed the kids by not giving them the proper education at the time when it would have been easy to teach them some of these things. And then by the time we get to 3rd grade, we start blaming everybody. Okay, whose fault is it? It's the teacher's fault. No, it's the parents' fault. No, it's the school system's fault. And then the governor says, well, if these kids can't read, then schools have to hire a reading specialist. You have to hire this person and this person. We're not going to give you any extra money, but you need to have all these things in place. If we had done early intervention and gotten the kids in school, let's quit giving money all these colleges and this higher education stuff. I'm sick of seeing all these new fancy buildings showing up on campuses when, tuition's not going down. And the education at the colleges is not getting better. That's a whole nother topic. But, we could put that money towards early childhood education. And then, in high school, have colleges partner up with these high schools so these kids are getting, some training while they're still in school, so that they're leaving high school with an associate's degree. That's a big thing that's going around now, and I think it's a great idea. But, getting the kids in school when they're, 2.5, 3 years old. It helps with the daycare issue that a lot of people have trouble with. It'll help with learning stuff early. Maybe we can teach kids to be kind to each other when they're still young enough to be able to have that conversation with us. So I just think early intervention in education is kind of the number one thing, that we should be doing and we're not doing.
So, well, I'm going to ask a weird question here, right? And I only ask this because I did some volunteer work for the last couple of years with the CFI, and I went and did some lobbying, right? And one of the things, I got when I met with my representatives and other representatives is like, oh, I don't think you understand how the system works, right? We just can't introduce all these different bills. So I'm going to throw a hypothesis out there, or a hypothetical situation. I want to say, if you could introduce legislation in Michigan, what is the number one thing that you would introduce in Michigan to help those of us that want a better life for the rest of us?
I don't know. That's a tough one, because I think that I would need to get in and see everything from the inside. And because I've never been there before, going in and having this idea of, I'm going to go in and I'm going to, as a barnstormer, and I'm going to change everything right. So, I'm not even sure what's possible. And I'd hate to, I guess, create some sort of a bill that had no chance of, passing because I hadn't done my research on it. I guess what I would want to do is, look at the different things that we can do and figure out the possibilities and have some discussions and, get, a handful of people together and just brainstorm, and throw out every single idea that we have and then figure out, okay, what are the top things that we need to do? Because, I think it's unfortunate for people to, representatives or anybody to go at something and stand alone and not have the support of people, because the more people you get involved, the better ideas that you have. And, because just because it's my idea doesn't mean it's the best idea. It could be that somebody else has an idea that I hadn't thought about. And, so working together with different things, as far as, creating bills that would make people's lives better, I like the idea of, having a livable wage. Whether or not we can jump from what it is now all the way up to $15 right now, I think that would be difficult. I think it has to be incremental. But to know something is in the plan, something's in the works, I think is really important. To have, something where that people can go to college and not walk away with $60,000 in loans, and then no chance of ever getting a job that's going to pay your student loans because, the college offered, a program that they knew there's no, that there's no jobs available for. So, there's so many little things that should be happening, but the people that we have in office right now aren't looking at those things. They're trying to pass things that are popular.
Well, I mean, I would say that is it's refreshing. So, like, usually when you would ask that question, the typical representative or politician would say they have one. And here's the one. This is the thing, and you have enough discretion to basically say, it's like, I have some things that I would like to do, but I want to mention something that's realistic and real world. And so, I mean, that's a great place to go with that. Just a quick mention to earlier, you were talking about the younger childhood education and basically intervention at that point. I was looking at some of the other countries throughout the world that are leading in education right now and actually starting to take away from the United States as far as the number of graduates that we have in this country has been going down for years. China starts its education in their pre-K and in their preschools at 3 to 4. I have 2 kids, both under 3. One just turned 3 last week, and going through the childhood psychology stuff. 0 to 3 is where you have the most number of neurons created in a brain, in an infant's, in a child's life, in a toddler's life. And so what we're doing is essentially neglecting that point and period, especially like you said with the 2 income families. We're neglecting the most growth per capita in brain material and brain matter in our children's lives, and a lot of times we're just sticking them with bright, flashy screens and movies and television, as opposed to books and education and things that other countries are innovating at. We're being left behind, and so I this education is a real important thing for Cellar Door Skeptics, and we've always really liked to hit on it. So it's nice to hear that that's something that would be interesting for you.
Yeah, and being a teacher for 11 years. I taught gen ed and I taught special ed. I taught all the way from kindergarten up to middle school, although I did have one class that I covered for the high school, and that was a group of emotionally impaired students. And so I worked with, a variety of grade levels and student populations, and what I saw in every single one was that they would have benefited from, some sort of early intervention. And sometimes the behavior stuff, what I had, because I have my degree is I have an emphasis on cognitively impaired and emotionally impaired. So as I said earlier, the group that I had my last year that I was teaching, they were cognitively impaired, and I was supposed to teach 8th grade science and social studies. I'd never taught that before. I had no materials, I had no books, but I was supposed to teach 8th grade science and social studies. And at the same time, I had students that they didn't know how to get the deodorant out of the container. They didn't know that you're supposed to turn the little knob at the bottom to make it come up. And so I said, oh boy, these guys need some of these life skills. So I bought them each a little backpack and deodorant and toothbrush and toothpaste. So every day we spent anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes going down to the bathroom just so they could freshen themselves up every day. And I got
with your money?
Yeah, what's that? With
your money?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's no money in the school budgets to do anything like that. It was, it was dollar store stuff. I had 7 students, and I spent probably, I don't know, $50, but that's what teachers do. Teachers are constantly doing that. I've bought shoes for students. I bought winter coats, from Goodwill, things like that. I always had food in my drawer because I had students that would, come in, and like I had a student whose mom worked at a strip club. So, he was running the streets at night, and he'd come in the morning and he'd be so tired, but he came to school every day because it was warm And because there was lunch there, he didn't want to do any schoolwork, but he would come and he would sit in my classroom and he would put his head down and fall asleep. And but if he was hungry, I had snacks in my drawer. Always, 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 I had snacks in my drawer. If I had extra fruit at home that my kids weren't eating and that was going to go bad, I brought that to school and my students were eating it. And that that's not a unique situation. Teachers all over the place are doing that kind of thing.
And I think,
so yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Well, I was going to say, when we talk about who we want to elect,
I know. I was thinking the same thing.
We talk about the moral compass of individuals. You and I may not agree spiritually, per se, but the moral aspect, the humanistic aspect of that,
yes,
is amazing. And when we talk about who do we want to elect, who do we have in office right now? We have a guy that is sexually harassed, sexually abused, sexually assaulted people. We have people that he makes fun of reporters and other things that he can't quite grasp the concept. And then we have Heidi over here, and she's running for office. And people want to go, well, she's a Democrat, we can't vote for her. But when we sit here and we talk with you, your humanistic morals and what you did, you are like a live example of how people should interact. People want to talk all day long about how amazing they are. You're like, oh, I don't really want to talk about it. I just want to get elected. And then we find out in your past, you're a teacher and you've done all these things. And I think, in my opinion, and this is a personal opinion of mine, we should be electing a heck of a lot more teachers, because I think teachers in the long run can see the moral decay that is happening and can say, hey, how can I help? What can I do? How can I make this better for you? And if you're just taking it to the next level, you're saying, hey, I can make my students' lives better, but you know what? If you put me in office, I can make a lot of other people's lives better too.
Just real quick, I just want to mention that everyone that she's not running directly against Donald Trump, but her opponent. Her opponent is a Trump supporter, very conservative, so there's no question there. Because I just want to make sure that nobody thinks that Heidi's opponent is a child molester or sexual molester or sexual predator. There's a disclaimer for our show, but either way, no, it's just we know that the opponents in the GOP are, they're big supporters of Donald Trump, and so Heidi is, this is refreshing, and we definitely hope, because this is just a nice conversation, and I would love to see a GOP person come in and try to have a conversation like what we're having, because everything that you've done when it comes to dealing with children is really nice to hear. And I don't know, I think Chris and I are definitely in the same boat. We definitely think that more teachers should be elected into offices around the nation.
Well, it's interesting. I've thought that as well, as about teachers being elected. It's a unique situation as a teacher, because you are in a position where you have to think outside the box with, up to, 28 little faces looking at you, when they all have different personalities, they all have different wants and needs, and they all have different expectations. Plus, you have their parents that come with their own wants and needs and expectations. Then you have your administration that has their own wants and needs, expectations. And then they have themselves, like the teachers have what they know they're capable of in the course of a day. And, teachers go to school when they're sick because it's too hard to plan, to tell somebody what you do every day. And, you have to go whether you feel up to, to being on top of things or not. So, as a teacher, and a politician, you have to work with all different parties, and you have to work with all different viewpoints and ideas. And, I just don't think a lot of our politicians have that experience. And, some of them, like my opponent, he is a farmer. I don't know how many people he's had to work together with to come to a compromise or to come up with a problem-solving, idea that has to do with real people and real life situations. The guy that holds the position for the state representative for the 80th right now. Same thing. He's a farmer. I'm sure that through the years that he's already been in office, he's learned some things. But before that, what is their real experience being able to problem solve and really have a conversation with someone? Sometimes, your idea is not the one that's going to happen. Sometimes it's going to be a compromise between your idea and somebody else's, just because, one decision, one idea is not going to make people happy. The other one's not going to make people happy. So the compromise is what has to happen, because that's going to make everybody satisfied. And, right now, everybody, you've got the left yelling so loud and the right's yelling, even louder. And basically, it's just a matter of who can yell the loudest. And that doesn't mean they're right. That just means that they're louder.
Exactly. And that's the funny thing. You talk about Luke's problem-solving skills. You know what he does? He churns inward to his family and then churns to his church.
Yeah.
And the difference is you can do that, and that's great. Good for you. And I guess we're a very openly secular show, and we're okay. Hey, believe what you want to believe. But if your only solution is to turn to your church and to God, I'm sorry, but we need to have a conversation here. And this is why I can't support most GOP candidates that have nothing to do other than to say, yep, I'm going to go pray about it, and I'm going to go do this. You lived in real world solutions. You lived in a world where it's like, I could pray all I want, but at some point I have to take action myself.
Right.
And you could talk, if that's God inspired, hey, fine. More power to you. I'm okay with you believing that. But you took action. You didn't rely on another organization. You took action. And when we want to talk about Luke Meerman and what he's doing, right? He's sitting here saying, I went to a church and they took action for me. What action has he taken? What has he done to help the community? Has he helped individuals? Sure. Has he actually gone out of his way to help that many people? Does he do it on a daily basis? Does he freely give of his own money, for Christ's sake, on a daily basis? I could say in all honesty, you do. And that's why if I were in your district, your vote would be for me.
And I appreciate that. When I went through the cancer stuff, afterwards, I just really felt miserable, afterwards. And it was just this past spring that I got off the medication, and I had I actually went in and had a hysterectomy so that I could get off the medication, just because of the type of cancer that I had. So that was the beginning of June. And so I decided to run in April, and then in May, I ran a 5K with my daughter because I volunteered for Girls on the Run, and then I had surgery 3 days later. So then after that is really when I felt good enough to go out and do stuff. So I haven't worked, in the 2 years since I quit my job originally. And then I thought, wow, I'm ready to go get a job. Well, I can't, because now I'm doing this campaign, and certainly can't go and ask somebody for a job and say, oh, but wait, in November I might not be able to work. So the plan was to do some substitute teaching and things like that, and and I never had to sub before, so I'm kind of nervous about it. Going and standing in front of a bunch of kids that I don't know is it's kind of intimidating. But so in the meantime, what I've done is I have picked up a lot of volunteer opportunities. There's a program, it's run through a church here in Allendale. It's called Manna Meals, and I deliver food to the schools for kids. It's a sack lunch program where they take food home at night for kids that need extra nutrition. Through Gilda's Club, I went to some support groups there after going through cancer, and so now I volunteer with Gilda's Club through their Last Fest program. And I volunteered for Girls on the Run. Doing some coaching and things like that. So, and I foster dogs through a dog rescue called Unleash Love Pet Rescue, and we're keeping busy and doing things like that. So even though I'm not working, I feel like I'm trying to put something back in the community, and trying to in the meantime while I'm not working, I'm trying to continue to do those kinds of things as much as possible.
That's awesome. Heidi, we know you have at least one event coming up.
Yeah.
And then we know that people can help donate and help support your cause. Tell everybody where they can get a hold of you at, where they can find you at, and where your next event will be at.
Okay. Well, we have our website, and it's Zuniga for mi.com. And Zuniga is spelled Zuniga. My email is Heidi Goes to Lansing at gmail.com. And because I love old movies, so it's kind of a take on, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. So it's Heidi Goes to Lansing. You can also find me on Facebook Heidi Zuniga for state representative, something like that. If you search up Heidi Zuniga, you'll find my personal profile and you'll find my campaign profile. So, so that's how you can find me and get a hold of me. And, certainly we welcome any kinds of help. We're working on knocking doors still now until the election. Donations are always welcome. We still, have signs that we'd like to purchase and things like that. And we have one event coming up that's scheduled for this coming Saturday. It's in Hudsonville. It's called the Urban Heyday. I don't know what time. I think maybe 1 to 3 o'clock, something like that. So I was at the event last year just with my family, and it was a lot of fun. So we thought this would be a fun way to spend the day. Hopefully it's not pouring, raining, and freezing cold. So you never know the way the weather's been.
It's 11 a.m. to 4 p.m., by the way, folks.
Well,
and we will have links.
Because otherwise I would have showed up at 1, and that would have been bad. So, so we're going to be out there. It'll be a lot of fun. And Jeanette Skipper's going to be out there. I don't know who else is going to be out there with. We're going to invite Christopher Banks from the 90th and Jerry Sias from the 89th district that are running. So we're going to invite all of them to be out there. So there's going to be lots of people out there to come and meet and talk to. And we got to come up with some sort of game or activity to do. So I don't know. We'll see. We might have bottle flipping or something.
Pumpkin chunking. Shoot pumpkins through the air. That'd be fun.
Well, I don't think we're getting that involved.
We'll put it this way. At least this half of Cellar Door Skeptics will be out there at some point. I don't know if I'll be out there at 11 or if I'll be out there at 2:30. It depends. My daughter has dance on Saturday, so I have to take her too.
Okay.
But I will be out there so that we can meet in person again.
Perfect.
So awesome. Thank you so much, Heidi, for joining us tonight. Anybody that's listening, please click the links. Support her in any way, shape you can. You can donate to her cause. You can help knock on doors if you want, or even just a share of either this podcast or her personal website will help get the views that she needs to help oust, or I guess that's not even oust, but help defeat Luke Meerman, a ultra-conservative GOP candidate who does not deserve to be in office. Thank you so much, Heidi.
Yeah. Hey, can I just say, if anybody has any questions, I love to talk. I'm a big talker, so if they want to shoot me a message on Facebook, you I'd be happy to answer any issue that they're wondering about or any thoughts that they have. I'd like to hear their thoughts too. So, just tell them to, tell your friends, whatever, get a hold of us on Facebook or shoot me an email.
Cool. Thank you so much, Heidi. All the links will be in the description. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And thank you all for listening to Cellar Door Skeptics. And that was Heidi Zuniga. Thank you all for joining us for that amazing segment. And we had the conversation, and it's kind of funny. Chris and I had a conversation about what do we want to do with the podcast, right? We talk about all these national things, and we really want to drive the podcast towards local politics and discussions. And so this is our first foray, I suppose.
This year.
Yeah, this year. It's our first foray back into local politics. And we really wanted to have that conversation because we believe that changing the local sphere towards a very blue or green wave will help, change future politics on the federal level. But I'm
a little hesitant toward the green thing, but whatever.
We'll see. But as we head towards the end of the episode, yeah. And yes, they're a little bit shorter episodes for this month. I'm going to admit, we're going with a shorter episode. We're going with more of a individualized, discussion. But we're trying to get as many local politicians on the show as we can. We wanted to talk, our quick save, right? And this is kind of as we end the show out. I know before we didn't end the show on the quick save, but as we end the show out and we talk about different things that we were researching during the week, but didn't quite have a conversation about, that's what we get to do now. So for me, this week's quick save, and this is kind of a funny one. We were sitting at the dinner table, Hannah, and I'm sitting with my daughters and my wife, and it's kind of funny because lately the Kavanaugh thing has been on the minds of all of us, and it's really hard. it's really hard not to have that conversation, honestly, internally, because my wife is disgusted as I am. And, sometimes it's kind of funny because my daughter's like, well, who's that? And then we talk through it. And then she's like, oh, yeah, that guy's a really bad person. Why would anybody vote for him? I was like, I don't know, honey. Like, that's why I need you to grow up sooner than later so you can vote. Like, I just need you to be old enough to vote so we can get rid of these people,
Help me! Yeah.
And we were talking through these things, and, she brought up the point that I guess Mitch McConnell is decided to throw his hat in the ring if Republicans will have him in 2020 to run for Supreme Court. I'm dead serious. Yeah. He's like, if there's an opening, folks.
Wow.
You should elect me, and I'm going to run for it. And I'm sitting here going, honey, there's no way that's like ridiculous. Like, why would he even say that? But it's true. He had all this whole conversation about this. And I'm sitting here, I was like, all right. So not only is Mitch McConnell the turtle man, like, I'm just going to see him as this big turtle. And he's in his 70s. So if he is nominated and confirmed, is this 70-year-old turtle that we're putting on the Supreme Court. And while that's kind of funny, that is a little funny because a turtle on the Supreme Court is kind of funny. But I was like, what's his history, And so as I'm doing this research and I'm going through all these things, I'm starting to save these discussions I'm having internally with myself. I'm like, all right, Mitch McConnell, did he go to law school? Yeah, unfortunately he did.
Oh, he is a lawyer then.
Did he? I don't know if he's a lawyer, but he did go to law school.
Well, if he went to law school, he has to be.
No.
Did he pass the bar? Do we know?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if he passed the bar.
It would be so amazing if Mitch didn't pass the bar. Okay. Anyways, continue.
But it doesn't matter. For Supreme Court justice, you actually don't have to pass the bar. You just have to have. You actually don't have to have any training.
No,
but most have law training, but you don't have to have that. It's not a requirement, and that I didn't know this. Like, I actually thought if you wanted to be a justice in the Supreme Court, you actually had to have a law degree.
Something.
You don't. Yeah, no, you don't. Legally, you do not. Legally, wow. Hannah, you do not. It's insane. It says in the Wikipedia thing, it actually says they all have, but it does not say it's a requirement. And then when you go to the U.S. website, you go, is this a requirement? And the FAQ literally tells you, the FAQ on the United States government website literally tells you that you do not have to have a law degree or have served in law enforcement to get nominated for the Supreme Court. And I'm sitting here going, hold on a second. Why in God's green earth would we ever allow anybody to be a judge who has never A, been a lawyer, and B, never been a judge? Like, that's inconsequential. That's just illogical to me.
It seems to me that we would assume that the congressional, I guess, background check process would just weed those out. Because, I mean, do you remember some of the judicial appointments that Trump was trying to put forth that they were like, have you ever done anything as a judge? And the guy's like, well, I was a law clerk once. And you remember any of the judgeships that were actually rescinded?
No, I guess I'll be honest, I don't.
Okay, there were a couple of judges that were they went to law school. They did a couple things as far as clerks or something, and like every question the Democratic people on the committee were like, "Have you ever done this?" Which is basically a major responsibility of an appeals court judge or whatever. And the guy was like, "I have not." Like, have you ever done this? No, I have not. Have you ever done this? No, I have not. It's like it really does. Like it should be. The committee says, "Yeah, you're not. Basically,
fit to be a judge."
Yeah, you're not fit to be a judge, and I mean, whatever. And so, like, it's just a really big surprise that like a lot of the judges that have been appointed have been just pushed through, and just you would hope that the questioning process would be a little bit more thorough. There were a few that got pushed back where like the media got a hold of the testimony, and they were like, "Holy crap, can you believe this?" And those people actually they basically rescinded their claims that they wanted to be the judge. And like, I mean, it's just surprising things, but like, I did not know that there are no real actual major requirements. If anyone knows, are there any? Because I have not.
I looked them up. There's not.
Really? There are none.
I
So,
and
like,
I agree with your anger.
President Trump could say, Chris Tanner, as long as you swear a feat of loyalty to
Yes,
me,
absolutely.
you can be really.
Yes. The difference would be is that most of them have some law background, and I don't.
Well,
But
I would think that there was no way that people would be considered, but really, that's the
there's
case.
no laws against it.
Wow.
And that's what got me interested in this article, because my wife mentioned that, and I was like, no way. And so I Googled it, and I started going through Mitch McConnell's Wikipedia, and I found out that he actually has been married, had children, and been divorced, and got remarried, right? And I was like, okay, hey, that's interesting. His first wife, though, guess what? His first wife, Hannah,
is
guess what she does now for a living?
a law professor?
Absolutely not. She is a feminist professor. Seriously.
Okay, I got the professor part right. She's a feminist professor at a school somewhere. Like,
yeah, she's a feminist scholar for Smith College and the director of the Sophia Smith Collection. Literally,
that's
like,
cool.
we're talking about, a turtle. A turtle who believes in ultra-conservative rights. His first wife becomes a feminist, and I'm sure she was a feminist before this. But
maybe she was, and maybe she got married and she realized that the magnitude of the mistake she had made, and that was a driving force. I don't know. Were you able to find any history as to like when they divorced or anything?
Well, they have a history when they divorced and he got remarried and all these other things, and there is that. But in fairness to her, there's not a lot of history on her, and maybe she wanted to stay at the spotlight,
Yeah,
right?
Maybe,
and good for her. But for me, the funny thing is you have this ultra conservative Baptist lawyer, that's not even a lawyer, but he went to law school, didn't become a lawyer, but he did whatever he had to do. And then all of a sudden now he's going to the Senate and he's moving through, all these judicial different type things. And she finally just said, hey, hold on a second. You're not my type. I'm done. Thank you for your time, but I'm going to go with somebody else. She divorced in 1980.
Okay. Is there any record of like her dissension or something? She's like, I'm done.
No, none.
Okay.
Absolutely. And in fairness to her, if that's how she wants her life, I'm okay with that, right? Like, if she wants to be private about all this and she wants to say, hey, I'm not a part of this, nucleus, I'm a person that, decided I'm no longer part of him. Good for her. And in fairness to him, he did not remarry for 13 years after his divorce, right? And he hasn't had other kids after that.
He's married to a woman who's now part of the... she's in the Trump administration, isn't she?
She's part of the transportation.
Yeah, the transportation department. Yeah, and I remember seeing stuff like that. There was like, they were talking about weird, like conspiracies or connections and communication stuff in between. And it's just like, yeah, it was husband and wife. It's not that big of a deal, but like, that doesn't really surprise me that Mitch McConnell would have been married to a feminist. It definitely seems like a place that either he changed or their relationship changed pretty significantly.
My guess is their relationship changed. And in fairness, you wanted a segment called Quick Saves, right? And it's one of those things where I'm going through the internet and all of a sudden I find something and I go, holy crap, I did not know this. And my wife and I had this conversation and she's like, no, good for her. And I was like, exactly. Good for her. Fuck Mitch McConnell. Screw Mitch McConnell. And it is what it is. What was your quick save for the week, Hannah?
My quick save, I was just trying to basically amass some information. I was trying to figure out, so like one of the things that we mentioned multiple times throughout the episode is like local politics. And I was like, you know what? I was trying to figure out who exactly what district I'm in, what representative I get to vote for, who do I get to support, mostly because right now about this time I'm getting ready to paint marker my car all up to say, vote Gretchen Whitmer, vote Rob Davidson, because I know for a fact that I am going to be supporting both of them, but I wanted to know who else I'm going to be supporting as well. And I went to the Michigan Secretary of State. Ruth Johnson is the Michigan Secretary of State, but everyone else also, if anyone else throughout the United States, you just go to your Secretary of State and you will be able to find your voter information center. And we have included in our description the link to the webapps.sos.state.mi.us, and there's some other stuff. MVIC was the most Michigan Voter Information Center. Each state will probably have a slightly different URL, but you can go there. You can type in your first name, last name, birth month, birth year, and zip code, and it will give you your actual ballot. You can get all the information you're going to be on, but one of the things, like, it gives you everybody you're going to vote for your partisan section, the state, Secretary of State, Attorney General, blah, blah, blah. But what it also gives you is something that I was specifically looking for, is all of the different proposals. And so in Michigan, you have a marijuana proposal, and you have your the second proposal is a big one, which is the Citizens Not Politicians proposal, which is about redistricting everything. And then there's automatic election day voter registration, and then the last one is a local one for me, for local schools. But like, you can read your proposals ahead of time. So I don't know, most people probably go in and they see these proposals for the first time, and it's hard to jam all that stuff in your head. You're in a hurry, you don't have much time. You can at least look at it on here. You can print it out if you want to read it for later, but like, I can't tell you how important it is to just have something you can scratch notes on, write a name down. You can do a quick Google search or whatever, but have it on paper if you can print it out, or just be able to look it up. It's really useful into finding out who you're going to be voting for. And I mean, we mentioned local voting and all that kind of stuff. Well, I didn't know that I'm going to be able to vote for a few of these people. I mean, I don't know who I knew who I had heard through Michigan radio, Dana Nessel, but like, she's going to be my Attorney General vote, and then obviously Debbie Stabenow. But then we have Rob Davison, who's going to be representative of Congress. But my particular, my state representative is I've been getting a whole bunch of they stick their stupid flyers in my door because I don't have any kind of no trespass sign or something where they can come up and put that on there. But like, I've been getting flyers for people and for Republicans and stuff. And it's like, I had a guy come from Rob Davidson's campaign come out and say, "Hey, you want to sign or whatever?" It's like, yes, let's do this, man. So, I mean, I'm super excited about it. And this is a great place where you can get started. If you don't know where anything is, you can at least go to your voter information center.
Exactly. And I agree with you. You know, it's funny you post that, right? You know, and that's one of the things that, you know, I look at and I go, yeah, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. And you know, that's kind of how I found Christopher Banks. You know, he's the one running against Garcia. And I just kind of said, hey, I want to get to know you better. I messaged him, and, you know, he's going to be on the podcast soon. And that was the conversation we had. It's like, hey, you know, I didn't know you were going to do this. And he's like, I didn't know either. And he's like, but I'm running and you should vote for me.
Yeah, just basically putting his word out there. Like, he's out there and not too many people know about it. We really need to just spread the word and let people that we know. I mean, that's the best part about some of our politics, is that with the podcast, we spread the word. We can have a little bit louder voice, and if anybody's interested, you know, let us know, and we can connect you. We can hook you up with the volunteer communications and the networks or whatever. Anything we can do, we'll help you out. Just cellardoorskeptics@gmail.com or our Facebook.
Exactly. Thank you all so much for listening to Cellar Door Skeptics. We'll be back next week with more local politics and another amazing show. Thank you all, and have an amazing night.
You've been listening to a presentation of Cellar Door Skeptics. Check us out on Spreaker. CellarDoorSkeptics.com.